money. Excess money. What do you do as an underdog with a desire for world domination? A population of 1.4 billion people and tons of billions of dollars to spend. You can invest in your people. You can invest in other people. You can fight your way to the top with a trade war, and in some cases you can simply buy your way to the top. This is China. In the last 10 years, amidst US-China's trade war, Hollywood blockbusters have gone from dominating China's box office top 10 to having to struggle for a spot alongside local productions. Pre-pandemic figures indicate that Hollywood generates $9 billion from the Chinese box office annually. However, 2020 figures is nothing to write home about, with Hollywood film projects like Mulan, Wonder Woman, and even Godzilla flopping significantly in the Chinese market. What could be going on between Hollywood in Los Angeles and the CCP in Beijing? One might wonder, how could Hollywood be overtaken by a country whose own hit movies rarely travel overseas? In fact, China only began allowing private producers to lead films on their own in 2003. In this video, we'll be exploring the rise of China as a filmmaking force, the laxity and challenges faced by Hollywood, and the influence of the Chinese Communist Party on the future of global entertainment industry. Before we get the juicy stuff out of the way, my name is Emmanuel Ogu and welcome to my new channel, a space where we explore the world of global tech, politics and business. This is my very first video, and so I appreciate you all who are watching as you make up my very lovely audience. Please like and subscribe so we can grow this channel as fast as possible. Without further ado, let's dive in. A bit of history. If you're a fan of global show business like I am, then you might have noticed the constantly evolving bromance going on between Hollywood and China in the past 2 decades, and the new direction it's been taking recently. Hollywood has always enjoyed a certain dominance over the global entertainment landscape. Perhaps this dominance has led to a laxity on the part of Hollywood on their approach to the film business. For Hollywood, the growth of a middle class with a per capita income that has grown 20 folds in one generation in China is indeed an irresistible market, and Hollywood is determined to rake in every cent of those billions they can find. In fact, they have been receiving Chinese investment for quite a while, with Beijing encouraging external investments for businesses providing entertainment services to their 1.4 billion population. One might think that the Chinese Communist Party agenda would be a serious thought-provoking narrative that Hollywood might be wary of, and this is true indeed, as we will find later on in this video. What Hollywood failed to realize is that while they keep on chasing profits and struggling to maneuver around China's heavy regulatory landscape, Chinese producers keep on getting better and better at making films, oftentimes importing US crew to provide technical support. Last year, China beat the US to become the biggest film market in the world in terms of revenue. Although the pandemic had a huge part in this event has not been entirely unexpected. Box Office Mojo reported that local movies account for 84% of China's box office revenue in 2020, an increase from 64% in 2019. In 2020, 4 of the 10 biggest titles were made in China. Hollywood has repeatedly failed to strike a chord with the Chinese audience. One clear example is Disney's attempt at maneuvering the delicate Chinese market. Despite spending 5 years and a fat budget of $200 million, Disney's effort in tailoring the 2-hour action fantasy Mulan to the Chinese audience backfired in a not so delicate way. The Chinese felt that the lead character, Liu Yifei, lacked serious depth, unlike the original 1998 animation. The movie was also plagued with historical inaccuracies. Monster Hunt, directed by Paul W.A. Anderson, was pulled from Chinese cinemas after a scene created a backlash from the Chinese public, who called it racist and an insult to the Chinese people. Succinctly put by Xiao Zhangyu, producer of Detective Chinatown film, a popular slapstick comedy franchise by Wonder Pictures. When Donald Trump came into office, we all saw the arrogance, you said. They pay attention to Chinese money, but they don't pay attention to what the audience wants. The audience is pissed off. Well, China is not just paying attention to its own audience, it is also paying attention to its numbers. Consider the sheer numbers. China has a population of about 1.4 billion people. The US counts about 330 million. The financial incentive is there for Chinese filmmakers to make Chinese blockbusters like Star Wars and Avengers, and they have done this with style for the past 2 decades. China is also investing in not just the movie production process, but the entire business ecosystem, which of course includes distribution. Some of the new theme park studios cropping up all over the country's eastern coast, known locally as film and television bases, are truly impressive. Wang Zhangli, billionaire tycoon, splashed $7 billion in 2013 to build its own studio in the coastal city of Jingdu. Wonder Cinema is currently market leader of the Chinese cinema chains in terms of both admissions, 78 million, and box office, 488 million, or 315 billion yuans. According to Mail Online, China is set to take over the United States as the world's biggest theatrical market in 2022. Chinese companies started to realize how much money could be made from building new theaters, sometimes in unexpected locations. Just last year, the National Office for Special Film Funds reported 5,778 new cinemas built in 2020 and 2,000 cinemas built by February of 2021, already bringing the total new cinemas in China to a gobsmacking 77,769, almost double that of the United States, currently at 44,111. and shy of the 80,000 mark set by the National Office of Special Film Fund in 2018. The battle of big government. In the game of usurping Hollywood, Chinese local film studios need an ally, and one familiar name that has consistently cropped up in this video is the Chinese Communist Party, or the CCP. Despite years of joint venture and co-investment with Hollywood, the CCP has perhaps been Hollywood's greatest frenemy.
Everyone wants access to Chinese market, so they're able to use that as leverage to basically bully companies, even movie execs, to produce the content they want.
Autocratic governments like the CCP, well in the midst of a trade war with the US, recognizes the socio-economic powers of movies and will not hesitate to pull out any element that does not fall in line with its nationalistic objectives. They will in the same breath pull any string necessary for its local films to succeed. In fact, the most successful Chinese-made films have been patriotic films, so the government certainly encourages them to push forward its socialist ideologies abroad. The Chinese Communist Party cannot afford to lose its grip on its own people by accommodating liberal thoughts like capitalism and democracy and human rights. Nah, that's for short-sighted nations like you-know-who. China has had a very strong censor board that limits its numbers of foreign films to 34 every year, an increase from 20 in 2018. China's censorship abilities is top class and is inextricably tied to the CCP communist objectives. Xi Jinping has repeatedly called for Chinese cinemas to be a confident expression of the country's culture, history and society, as interpreted by the Chinese Communist Party. To raise national cultural soft power, we must make efforts to spread the values of socialism with Chinese characteristics, he said in a speech in 2014. And so when interview clips of Academy Award-winning Chinese Hollywood director Chloe Zhao surfaced in 2013, in which Zhao was caught describing China as a place where there are lies everywhere, Zhao came under incredible fire from Chinese nationalists, and in fact, screening of her award-winning film Nomadland was cancelled, and the Oscar Award show that was meant to show her receiving an award was scrubbed from the internet space in China, leaving Zhao, a globally celebrated filmmaker, almost non-existent to Chinese 1.4 billion population. This is just one example. Now, you might argue that filmmakers in the US and Hollywood industry get crazy tax breaks, and the government is also invested in this industry just as China is in its own local industries. And to be fair, you'll be right. Quite a number of American films have done well in China. For instance, Marvel Avengers Endgame grossed $629 million last year, making it the 4th highest grossing movies of all times in China. The CCP realized that charity begins at home, so they need to maintain a tight grip on the narrative of things. It certainly cannot allow a free rein to anyone, not especially those pesky capitalist American filmmakers. No one says it better than Christopher Vollmer, Global Entertainment and Media Advisory Leader for PwC Strategy and Consultancy. This is the proven Chinese model. Use deals with global players to build up capabilities. Then support a robust and strong Chinese domestic business that can compete head-to-head with foreign companies. The result? billions of dollars poured into it, placing China on the verge of being the world's largest motion picture market with a distribution arm that is just as efficient as its production arms. Cities and towns have been built around its incredible studio infrastructure. Jobs have been created. To put it simply, the industry has grown to incredible heights in the past 2 decades, and the strategy of the CCP worked as it has done in other aspects of the US-Beijing trade war. And with China being the first to walk out of the COVID-19 pandemic, the odds are really stacked in their favor. The question is, will this order prove permanent? I think it will. We are most likely going to see Chinese power, culture and ideology spread across the globe in the coming years, as its American counterpart has done for the last 2 centuries. Thank you very much for listening in. If you've stayed with me this far, you absolutely rock. Please drop a comment, like and subscribe, and let's get the comment and engagement section hyperactive. Thank you once again. My name is Emmanuel Ogo, and I'll see you in the next video.